This is Gillis TV here right on Clemhawks, and today, folks, we got some Blue Jays news. And should it be worrisome? Depending on how badly you want to get Vladdy Guerrero Jr. re-signed to this multi-year extension. But before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more MLB news, rumors, whatever goes on in the MLB. Clemhawks and I will have that for you right here on the channel. Now, to the Blue Jays here, as Vladdy Guerrero Jr. and the Blue Jays haven't had a conversation yet this winter about a multi-year extension. The Slugger tells Sportsnet Shai David and other reporters Guerrero didn't sound overly concerned about the lack of talk, saying, "I'm going to stay focused on working hard and let my team," of course his agents, "take care of that." The idea of a long-term deal between Guerrero and the Jays have been a topic essentially since Guerrero arrived in the majors as baseball's top prospect. And though the first baseman is headed into his fifth MLB season, the clock isn't yet ticking too loudly on Guerrero's team control. Toronto still has arbitration control over Guerrero through the 2025 season. The two sides already worked out a contract for Guerrero for 2023, as he will earn $14.5 million for the upcoming year. With Guerrero set to become a free agent prior to his age 27 season, the relatively early entry into the market likely means a particularly large payday is awaiting the first baseman. Whether from another team or in a form of an extension from the Blue Jays to lock Guerrero up as face of the franchise. As David notes, the massive longer-term contracts handed out this winter undoubtedly caught the attention of both the Jays and Guerrero's representatives, and now both sides may have a better view of what it might cost the Blue Jays to retain Guerrero's services. Since most extension talks usually don't begin into deeper spring training, it will be interesting to watch Guerrero and the Jays have any substantive negotiation, or if any real progress is made towards an extension. So as a Blue Jays fan, this is something that you need to sign Vladdy. He is the face of this franchise. You didn't sign him with that international bonus for him to not be your franchise guy. This is a guy who will lead this team to a World Series one day, hopefully sooner than later. He is still young. Think about this. He isn't in his prime years yet, and he's mashing 30-plus home runs a year. We just seen what Aaron Judge could do in his prime here with the New York Yankees. That is something Vladdy can do in his prime as well, and he's just getting started. Of course, there's nowadays a lot more scouting on players, yada yada yada, but at the end of the day, there is more scouting on pitchers as well, and that's what Vladdy's been doing to improve his overall game. He lost all that weight a few years ago. He's working out more. He's eating properly. He's taking the time to watch pitchers' tendencies. He's not swinging at everything. This is a totally different Vladdy Guerrero Jr. we are seeing compared to when he first stepped into the big leagues a few years ago, where he is more patient at the box. He is taking walks. He knows when to use his power when hitting and when not to when it comes to driving in runs, getting it into the gaps, hitting it off the wall. That is what Vladdy is doing now, which is good. And they talked about in that, the contracts of this year's players and what Vladdy might be. You look at Juan Soto on that massive deal that he was offered from the Nats and whatnot from the Padres. You see what Aaron Judge got. It is going to be somewhere in there if you're the Toronto Blue Jays. And over the course of, I gotta say, the last 10 years, the Blue Jays have been that team to actually spend money now. They're not shy. They're not that little market team anymore that they were back in the day. They are a big market team. You got a whole country, or most of a country, standing behind the Toronto Blue Jays. That Rogers Center is sold out mostly anytime I watch a game, if it's a night game. Of course, midweek day games it won't be because of people working. But if the Toronto Blue Jays lost Vladdy Guerrero Jr., I'm not saying they will. I'm not saying they won't, though, either. As a Blue Jays fan, I'd be really mad at the organization for not doing what needs to be done in order to keep Vladdy a Toronto Blue Jay to the day he retires. He loves Toronto. He is one of those players that expresses his love for Toronto. He's a fun guy in the locker house. This is your cornerstone piece for years to come if you're the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, of course, bigger payday means less guys you could spend money on later down in the future. But that's where it comes down to your drafting and whatnot. Get those players up there. Look at a guy we just traded, Gabriel Moreno. Would have been a great catcher, but we had the abundance of Kirk and Jansen just couldn't do it. The Jays know how to draft. They do. They also know how to trade those assets for bigger assets, just like Austin Martin for Jose Barrios. We got 8+ years out of Jose Barrios now for a guy that we drafted who was going to be a good player for the Toronto Blue Jays. You know, he's kind of slidden off here in the Twins organization. But if you're going to keep Vladdy, you're going to have to pay him, and Vladdy is going to get paid eventually after or so. You look at his career numbers. Let's pull up his career numbers right now for Vladdy here as we do this. This last postseason, he went 1 for 8 with the RBI. Career postseason, he's a 133 hitter and 15 at-bats with the 1 RBI. So pitchers are taking notice of him in the postseason. We go look at his regular season this past season, where he had 638 at-bats, he had a 274 average, 32 home runs, 97 RBIs. Okay, when Vladdy came into the league, who would have thought he would have stolen 8 bases in 1 year? That is the improvement Vladdy is making for himself when it comes to the Toronto Blue Jays and becoming a better player for himself that he knows he can be. So he had 8 stolen bases last season. His career regular season, you got to remember, Vladdy is only 23 right now. They have controlled him till he's roughly 27 years old. He's had 1,927 at-bats for a 284 average and 104 home runs and 310 RBIs with 13 stolen bases. Vladdy Guerrero Jr. is this Blue Jays organization. He is your cornerstone. You put guys like Vasho, who they just acquired. You put Bo Bichette in that mix. Those are the supporting cast. It's like in the NHL when we talk about Connor McDavid. His supporting cast is Leon Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, and Hyman. It's the same in baseball. You need that supporting cast around your star player, which is Vladdy. Now, supporting cast in baseball is your pitchers too, and the Blue Jays have addressed that problem over the last 3-4 years on the rotation side of things. Beware of this Toronto Blue Jays team. They could be in it for the AL East, and if you're the Tampa Bay Rays and the New York Yankees, you're watching this really closely because who knows, maybe it's time to dethrone those Yankees, and the Toronto Blue Jays could be that team to do that. But hey, this is Gillis TV here on Clemox. If you don't mind hitting the subscribe button, that'd be great. And let me know in the comments what you think Vladdy's next deal is, because he deserves a payday. He is this Toronto Blue Jays team. Sorry, I was just watching the Buffalo Bills and Cincinnati Bengals game. Go Bengals, because I don't like Buffalo's teams any. But hey, let me know in the comments what you think. I'll catch you on the next one.